Hi guys, this is my amazing friend, one of my bestest friends in the entire world. His name is Kai.
Hi everybody.
If any of you have written into your Zen life in the past over email, you have been corresponding with this guy. He was the manager of your Zen life and is so full of knowledge and is just one of the most remarkable human beings I've ever met in my entire life. He is my friend, my teacher, my guru. And just being around him makes me feel so much smarter. So I asked him to come on today just to share some of his knowledge. He has a background in philosophy. What else?
A variety of different new agey modalities, I'd say.
Yeah.
It's a pretty easy way of saying it. I don't know. Shamanism, and my parents were both holistic healers, and I grew up in Santa Cruz in a very open-minded and inquisitive culture.
And as a result, he's just this bright, incredible human being that myself and my husband just love being around. So I'm really excited to have him here today. And he's, sometimes I refer to him as rainbows and butterflies because Kai has this really beautiful way of staying very present, but also just being a bright, positive light, and I think that's something he wants to talk about today. And what is really exciting is this will not be our only video that we do together because we're going to embark in a series of videos, so stay tuned for that. We will definitely be talking more about that later on, and I'm excited for you guys to just get to know him, and I'm so happy to welcome him to the Your Zen Life family, and enjoy what we have to talk about today.
Yeah. Thanks, Teresa. That's a very, very kind introduction, I must say. So just kind of like as an introductory conversation for us to have, what I thought we could talk about is I had a radio show for a while before I moved to New York that was called Point Positive Programming, which is kind of part of the means by which I keep myself focused on the positive aspects of whatever's going on. So I thought maybe I would talk about that a little bit and how I arrived at the concept of point positive programming in the radio show. And that started, it's funny, it's hard to ever pinpoint exactly where things start, right? Because everything leads to the moment that actually starts the thing. So
yeah.
The name point positive comes from my dad is a whitewater river guide, and so I grew up guiding rivers with him and learning to guide rivers. And one of the principles in whitewater river guiding is if someone falls out of the boat, they can't hear you because the water's splashing all around them. Mm-hmm. And so you always explain to whoever's going to be in your boat at the beginning of the day, if I point in a direction, I'll only ever point to where I want you to go. I will always point positive.
Cool.
I'll never point in the direction I want you to avoid.
Right.
So if I'm going like this, that means go there. It doesn't mean avoid there.
Okay, cool.
Which I was thinking about that and I was like, wow, that's such a beautiful concept. Why don't we communicate like that with people? Wouldn't it be amazing if the way that we engaged in all of our communication was rather than saying, don't do this, we pointed positive. We said, hey, I'd be stoked if you did this.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then just simply by kind of coming up with that idea, and I came up with that idea actually with a friend of mine, Dustin, while we were rafting the Grand Canyon together. And we just started talking about it, and we were on the Grand Canyon for 27 days, and the more we talked about it, the more we were like, this is amazing. This is like such a great way of just approaching communication in general. Mm-hmm. And then actually it's a really beautiful way of thinking about life at large. Mm-hmm. And coming out of that experience, I started to see all of these different places where the teachings basically mimicked that exact idea, right? The Secret was a very popular thing.
Yeah,
and The Secret basically said, focus on what you want to create and you can create it. It's about manifestation.
That's right.
The Power of Attraction is also talking very much about the same principle.
Yeah.
And then I started looking into other sports, other ways that sports reflect the same thing. And professional sports players will say, like a professional downhill skier will say, or mountain biker, when they're going down the hill and they see their course, they always focus on where they want to hit, not what they want to avoid.
Oh, yeah.
And simply looking at what they want to avoid increases the likelihood that they're going to hit it.
To hit that thing. That's so interesting.
Which then ends up applying perfectly to the concept of how to take a concept like point positivity or
and apply it to your life.
Or the power of attraction and think about it in relation to the way that you psychologically interact with your environment. Mm-hmm. Because if you're focused on what you don't want to happen, it actually increases the likelihood that you're going to hit it.
Yeah.
And if you focus on what you want to happen, it increases the likelihood that you'll get it.
Which actually sounds so incredibly simple.
It's so simple.
So then why are people missing that? How come it's so easy to lean towards the negative thinking process?
That becomes I can speak to that philosophically and empirically, but to try to say that there's an answer to that, there isn't an answer. It seems to me, especially after like thinking a lot more about point positivity and about all of these different modalities of manifestation, that a large part of why it's easy to get off course and focus on what we're afraid of is that fear is a very palpable and salient emotion.
Yeah.
And it's compelling. And
it feels good sometimes.
It's
like being like the dirty, the tough.
It also it's motivating.
Yeah.
When you're afraid, you get like a burst of energy.
Yeah, totally.
When you're feeling good, it's easy to just feel complacent in it. To be like, things are good. I don't need to work on it.
Yeah.
But fear motivates, or can motivate, and can also incapacitate. It can make you feel afraid of engaging as well.
Yeah, it's true.
Which happens for people. And it's also, in life, right, there's moving towards life and moving away from death, which are the same thing, but they're the two sides of it.
Yeah.
Moving away from death is fear. Moving towards life is joy.
Yeah.
Moving away from death is important, because otherwise you die.
Yeah.
And in the moments where death is near, it's maybe most important. Because if you were just joyful in those moments, you might not avoid death, and then you wouldn't be alive.
All right.
So that, for me, I think that has a lot to do with why fear might be so strong of an emotion and why there might be a tendency to focus on it. Mm-hmm. I'd say that there's other contributing elements to it, specifically in our society with the focus on fear in media and such.
Yeah, it's very much glorified. We were just talking about that.
And it's attractive.
Yeah.
Like if two things pop up on your screen and one says 7 people died and the other says cure for a disease, you're probably going to be more curious about 7 people died.
Yeah, I definitely know that I am.
And that's normal. And I almost think that it's a biological process. It's not like, I don't think it's necessarily even a spiritual or a philosophical thing. I think it's biologically, we're like, okay, what do I need to avoid first so that I can go to joy after?
Well, that's one of the reasons why I find myself watching so many of these like forensic files. Excuse me, phone's ringing. Line of news, okay. One of the reasons why I find myself watching so many of these morbid shows is because I feel like I'm equipping myself with information on how to avoid these things from happening to me in my life.
Right.
And it feels completely backward because I always feel kind of really dirty and awful after watching these things.
Well, and it actually even programs your mind to be looking for those things, which increases the likelihood that you see them.
That'll actually happen to you. Yeah.
And this very quickly becomes like a metaphysical thing, but it's actually a very simple psychological and material phenomenon in the sense that literally if you're looking for the things that you want, because you're looking for them, you're simply more likely to see them. It's not that there's going to be more of them necessarily. It's not like a metaphysical principle that you're going to create more of them.
Right.
But if you're looking for the things that you're afraid of, you simply are going to be more likely to see them.
Yeah.
They're all there. All of the possibilities are there. The thing that you want and the thing you want to avoid are both there. And if you're looking for one, you're going to be more likely to see it.
Okay, so how do you advise us to lean towards looking for the good stuff?
I mean, it's just a practice. The brain is a muscle.
Right, yeah.
I mean, technically it's not a muscle, but it works like a muscle. If there's if there's connections that you want to reinforce or perpetuate, it's simply practicing it, right? It's the value of the mantra.
Yeah.
If you wake up every morning and you say, I am beautiful, I am loved, and I love, your day has been started with beauty and love.
Yeah.
It's that simple. Then you're more likely to see it in the rest of your day. And it's that practice. If you wake up and you eat a Twinkie, your day's been started by sugars and chemicals.
Yeah.
If you wake up and you go for a run, your body's full of endorphins and all of this.
It's a good start to the day.
And you feel motivated because you've already done something to express efficacy. And so it's the same with the brain. If for me, what I've done is a very psychology 101 thing everyone learns about Pavlov, right? And Pavlov was the guy that was doing the tests with the dogs, where he'd feed the dogs, but every time before he'd feed the dogs, he'd ring a bell. Then he noticed that the dogs started to salivate when they heard the bell. That's the Pavlovian trigger.
Yeah.
The bell meant food. Even though the bell wasn't food, the dogs would salivate because they were ready for what came after.
Yeah.
So now, anytime I start to focus on the negative, I've created that as a Pavlovian trigger.
Interesting, yeah.
I go to the negative and I go, okay, I actually want to focus on the positive. I want to focus on what I want to create, not what I want to avoid. So when the thing that I want to avoid pops up, I go, okay, I see you. It's natural that you've come up. Now, what is the other side of that? What is the thing that I want? What am I trying to achieve?
Yeah.
There you are. Now I'm going to focus on you. It's not that means that I avoid thinking about things that I want to avoid.
Because that's inevitable. That's going to come up no matter what.
That's biological. We're going to have fear. We're going to see death, and we're going to want to avoid it.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. But for instance now, when the two things pop up on my screen and says 7 people have died, brand new cure for a disease, I might go, ooh, 7 people have died. And I go, is that what I want to focus on? No, I want to focus on the cure to the disease. Which even in that, it's talking about disease. It's still about avoiding death.
Yeah.
But it's like something positive. Like
100%. Or
I say, why am I looking at the screen? Why don't I write?
So what do you say to those people who are like, oh, it's not a realist to be always focused on the positive. Like, that's not real life. You know, there's all these horrible things going on. Like, we need to be aware. We need to look at these things. Like,
I say, absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely. Look at them. Just don't focus on them.
Ah, interesting.
It's not about avoiding things that you want to avoid. It's not about avoiding anything.
Yeah.
It's about choosing focus. That's it.
Yeah. Understand and recognize that they're there.
When your friend comes and says, my mom's died, you don't say, well, that's not positive anyway, so how about that really great sports game I saw?
Yeah.
You say, wow, okay, tell me about that. And you be present, and then you think about whether or not that is what you want to focus on. And there's no, just because something is negative, just because, quote, negatives, just because something maybe is hard or sad or any of the emotions that aren't happy, doesn't mean that it's bad. Yeah. Doesn't mean that it's to be avoided.
No.
It's more a matter of, if you don't want to think about people dying all the time, think about people living. Don't try to stop thinking about people dying. There again, another psychological principle, and this is from marketing. There's the principle of, there was a book called Don't Think of a White Elephant. That's impossible. If you say don't think of and then a white elephant, you're going to think of a white elephant.
Straight away.
Similar, if you say don't think about negative things, that's not the point.
Straight up. You're like, oh God, this horrible thing that's going on.
There are negative things. That's then, again, where your focus is. It's not about avoiding anything. It's about focusing and putting choice and efficacy into the direction that you want to reinforce. So just like the downhill skier or the downhill biker, you don't look at the rock that you want to avoid. You look at the path that you want to hit. And you hit it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So Kai, my guru, talking to us today about positivity and all the beautiful things and the life lessons he's had. And I feel so inspired talking to him. I'm sure you guys do. And we're going to do a bunch more of these. So you guys will get to listen more. And we love you. Thank you so much.
And thanks so much for tuning in.
All right. Bye. Mwah.
Ciao.
His friends in the entire world. His name is Kai.
Hi, everybody.